Okay, so great. I guess in like 1 minute, I'll let people. Oh, it's 5, I guess. So I guess now. Okay, cool. I'm gonna start letting them in.
All right, hello everyone. It's a couple more minutes to kind of filter in. In the meantime, if you guys want to introduce yourself in the chat, that would be great. We can get kind of a feel for who's here. For those of us just everyone in the Zoom meeting, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, that would be great. In addition to the prompts, though, on the slide, I'm noticing some people introducing their pronouns, which I think would be really great. Okay, awesome. So we can start the presentation. In New York right now. I'm in America Vista, working with the data team at Hunger Free America. I also see that there are a ton of fellow Vistas on, which is really great. I have been having some internet connectivity issues, so I'm going to portion. Cool. So before we really get into the meat of everything, I just wanted to do a quick land acknowledgement. I think it's really important, particularly when we're talking about human rights, to acknowledge the history and the present moment of the spaces that we're living in and living from off of. So I'm speaking to you from the physical space of New York City. I'd like to acknowledge the land on which I currently reside, which historically was that of the Lenape, Canarsie, Rockaway, and Wappinger indigenous peoples. I'm delivering a land acknowledgement to acknowledge the historical legacy of colonialism by honoring and paying respect to the land, which was taken by violent conquest, along with the domination of the people who inhabited the land and the imposition of white supremacy. We do this to raise greater public consciousness of Native sovereignty and cultural rights as a very small step toward equitable relationships and reparations. I also encourage everybody on the call today to privately maybe explore the history of their land and the peoples that have lived there and probably still live there today. Linnea is going to drop a link in the chat. That's a great resource if you want to look more into that. Cool. And then I can also take a second to introduce Hunger Free America. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the organization if you're coming from the volunteer section from us, but just in case anyone's not, Hunger Free America is a nonpartisan national nonprofit building the movement to enact policies and programs needed to end domestic hunger and ensure that all Americans have sufficient access to nutritious food. We're doing this through direct access work as well as a lot of advocacy, both of which work kind of together to strengthen each other. I am the Food Access and Data Management Vista at HFA. So I work with our data team on a national database of food access resources. And my work in particular focuses on building partnerships with like-minded organizations to increase accessibility and visibility of food access resources, which are the main goals of the database. And our database works with the hunger hotline that is contracted by the USDA. So I would recommend anyone on this call, if you need help finding food in your area, you can check out our hunger hotline as well as the Find Food website. Great. So HFA's work is really important right now. With the pandemic, the United States is facing the gravest hunger crisis in modern times, with more than 1 in 3 children missing meals or suffering from reduced portion sizes because their families can't afford food. Linnea just linked to a report published by HFA this past July 2020. It's pretty thorough. I would really recommend reading it. Some of the really unfortunate highlights are that the rate of child hunger now is 5 times higher than it was before the pandemic, and adult hunger is 2.5 times higher. As domestic hunger increases, all types of low-income families, of course, are suffering, but our data shows that people of color are infected at much higher rates. From this report, we learned that in the spring and summer of this past year, 41.1% of Black respondent households experienced food insecurity, as did 36.9% of Hispanic respondent households. Contrast to that is only 23.2% of white respondent households that they were experiencing food insecurity. As a global pandemic and demands for racial justice collide, it's more important than ever to uplift MLK's message of social justice. For over 2 decades, Hunger Free America has honored Dr. King's legacy by coordinating service events like this one and volunteer action supporting long-term solutions to hunger. This year's Serve-a-Thon, we hope that everyone takes away something new, learning how to take action in the fight against hunger, as well as some new ideas about how to continue working toward and supporting more equitable community. Finally, before we begin the workshop, I'd like to introduce some group norms, like working etiquette to frame our dialogue and discussion. We like to think that a safe space is also a brave space. We call it a brave space because we need, in this discussion, to accept the likelihood that we'll be uncomfortable when investigating issues of race, privilege, and oppression, as well as our roles within them. We'd also love for everyone to recognize their privileges in discussion, so we can use this space to recognize and investigate the way our privileges, like class, gender, sexual orientation, ability, really affect the way that we think about things. And also, we hope that everyone will honor the different experiences we all bring to this space. We also hope that everyone will take risks in discussion here and lean into discomfort. We're all learning and processing, and we'd love for everyone to challenge themselves to contribute, even if those ideas are not perfectly formulated. And then lastly, I'd love for everyone to actively listen before responding. So really use your energy to understand what is being said before thinking about how to respond. And in doing so, notice when defensiveness and denial arise within you, and really recognize those feelings and think about why that's happening and how we can get past that to have a more productive conversation. Also, if anyone has any other norms to add, that would be great. You can drop those in the chat. We can discuss from there. Cool. In that case, I can go ahead and introduce our host, Ryan. So Ryan Van de Heuvel joined Martha's Kitchen's team as the development director in this past July of 2020. As the development director at Martha's Kitchen, he's responsible for website development, social media, marketing, assisting with grants, and volunteer scheduling. Before this position, he was an assistant athletic director, teacher, and football coach at Monte Vista Christian. He also received his first master's degree in 2014 from Azusa Pacific University in organizational leadership with a focus on leadership development. During his master's program, Ryan also served as a graduate assistant football coach for the Azusa Pacific University football team. So let's all take a moment to say hello to Ryan.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Oh, I think, let me see. There we go. All right, can everybody hear me good? Awesome. All right, well, hey, thank you guys for your time today. My name's Ryan. I obviously work for Martha's Kitchen. I wanted to first kind of take a moment to say thank you guys. Time is the most valuable resource we got, and so I appreciate you sharing your time with me today to learn a little bit about what we're doing out at Martha's Kitchen, but then also discuss some bigger issues like homelessness and food justice and some of those topics. So I initially kind of was drawn to Martha's Kitchen. I really felt that I wanted to work for an organization that was really doing a lot of good out in the community. And, you know, through a connection through my former job, this job actually opened up and I was able to kind of step in as the development director and haven't looked back since. It's a very, I'm very blessed to work where I am. And yeah, I'm going to try to keep our 40-year history short. And I apologize because sometimes my short stories end up being really long. And so I wrote some notes down so that, you know, we can kind of go through this. And again, I can make the most use of our time here today. Let's go to the next slide. So history. All right, so we've been around for 40 years, or we're going to be around for 40 years. We're celebrating our 40th this next fall. Our founder, Louise Benson, she basically started Martha's Kitchen out of her garage in downtown Willow Glen. She started serving peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to those in need. Eventually, her operation grew so much so that she opened Martha's Kitchen and partnered with the local church. and basically where we still are today. And so we still serve hot meals. And obviously our little soup kitchen is not so little anymore. We serve meals Monday through Friday. We do one meal a day, a hot meal a day. And right now we usually have about 200 to 300 people showing up for those meals. Our mission is to feed the hungry with dignity, no questions asked. And the reason that is important is because we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable coming to Martha's Kitchen for a hot meal. Sometimes people get a little nervous if they feel like they have to give personal information, write stuff down, et cetera. And so we want to make sure that they really feel like, hey, they've got a safe place, they can come get a hot meal and, have that time. Prior to COVID, we actually did congregate kind of meal services. So in our hall where we serve food out of, we would actually have big round tables. We'd get everybody together. People would sit, they'd eat together, fellowship. It was a great time. Obviously with COVID happening, we've kind of had to transition to to-go boxes. But again, we really have actually, obviously because of COVID, seen a huge increase in people coming to our door seeking kind of food security. So, click the wrong button. There we go. So we partner with a ton of organizations all across California. We're in 9 different counties right now. We have over 75 different partners that we supply meals to. We do hot, cold, frozen meals, depending on the partner's needs. And we also do groceries. And so obviously, due to COVID, all of those needs expanded exponentially. But we really believe that, again, everybody should have access to food. And not just food, but nutritious food, right? I mean, I'm sure at different points, we've all missed a meal and you feel that kind of like hangriness take over and all that. But we want to make sure that, again, it's everybody can have access to food, does not miss out on food, has 3 meals a day. That's what we're kind of working towards. And so that's where, again, we tie into that kind of feeding everybody with dignity, no questions asked, kind of comes from. Meals and groceries, numbers from 2020. So at the end of 2020, we actually have served roughly about 1 million meals and 2 million pounds of groceries. We partner with a ton of local farms, stores, organizations, because we also really believe in food rescue. So basically saving any food that could otherwise go to a landfill, we try to redistribute to partners in various places because, again, somebody needs that food. Somebody can use that food, and it's better to save that food than obviously have it go to waste. As we look ahead to 2021, we're still obviously doing meal preparation, meal distribution, and then food rescue. Obviously, with the pandemic not really being over as soon as we had all hoped, we anticipate that those needs will continue to increase as more and more people are kind of finding, money and resources stretched. And so we want to be able to rise and kind of meet that need, and we're doing everything we can to kind of meet the challenges that are presented to us. Again, just want to take a second and say thank you to all of you guys for showing up. It's super awesome to see the chat and kind of see where everybody's from and see all the various types of states represented, right? And hopefully through the service project towards the end, we'll kind of be able to share and collaborate a little bit on how we can kind of help bring some food security to our communities and our states as a whole. So homelessness and food security are really big things to tackle as communities. I apologize, mask, just it is what it is. But when we talk about that, when we talk about the collaboration piece, that's really important. And we're going to kind of tie into this a little bit later towards the service project, but I wanted to mention it now that we obviously do food. That's just kind of what we do. That's what we've always done. We believe that it's really important to try to bring more services together in one place. Obviously, if we're doing a meal, but somebody across town is doing healthcare or laundry services or something else, it makes it tough for people to kind of get to those resources that they need. And so by trying to bring partner organizations to us, that allows people to kind of get more of their needs met kind of in one place. It's a little more kind of convenient. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. I wanted to kind of give you guys some numbers. I'm not gonna, don't worry, show a bunch of graphs and slides and all of that stuff. And if that's what you love, then I'm really sorry. 17 out of every 10,000 people in the US were experiencing homelessness on a single night in January of 2019 during HUD's annual point in time count. Now, some of these numbers are a little outdated. I do realize that, but again, this is going to paint the picture, and then you obviously can understand where COVID has really just kind of expanded on all of these numbers. These roughly 600,000 plus people represent a cross section of America, people from all walks of life. This group includes roughly a little over 200,000 people that are unsheltered. We're going to kind of talk about the difference between sheltered and unsheltered and what that means in regards to food and those types of resources here in a little bit. COVID-19. Obviously, we are all feeling that strain in various ways. But again, part of the issue with COVID is that it's taking away resources, income. It's forcing people, one, to turn to shelters, one, to go to the streets. They lose out on any sort of, again, resources that they had before COVID, jobs, security, etc. The other key piece of that ties food into that is, again, that health piece, right? If you go to having food 3 meals a day, every day, to 1 meal a day, that presents a lot of different problems. And so some of these numbers and some of the things we're going to talk about kind of really are centered around that. Two of the things that really kind of jumped out to me as I was doing some research on, the US as a whole, because I want to be honest with all of you. I know California. I'm a little more familiar with those numbers. It really kind of opened my eyes to just really truly what the problem and the numbers actually were when I started doing some more kind of independent research for this topic as far as the US as a whole. And so one of the numbers that I found was that around 19 million people live in food deserts. And what food deserts are is where, again, food is a little scarce. Certain types of food are a little scarce. It's a little harder to get food resources. And then 13.9, roughly around there, million kids are lacking food security. And that was the one that, again, I have a young daughter, really kind of hit home. And I think that in different ways, we want to make sure that, again, no household has to make a decision whether they're going to pay rent or have food on the table, right? So again, I really wanted to kind of plant the seed. We're going to talk about it a little bit more here in a little bit. Permanent housing is one of the big kind of key issues around homelessness and food security, right? Obviously, if you're unsheltered, so to speak, it's a lot harder to kind of find some of those resources. If you're in a shelter or temporary housing, usually they will have some sort of meal service provided. And that's where for Martha's Kitchen, we really partner with a ton of different organizations, churches, individuals that just want to serve their communities. Basically, anybody that wants food, we try to do our best to get them food. Because again, these people are serving various people in various counties and various spaces, and it's super important to understand that, again, this isn't just localized to kind of where we are. So collaboration, and I mentioned that before. There's been a big shift in policies. And again, I encourage all of you guys after this to kind of go look into your state's kind of local, city, regional policies that they have as far as what they are doing to provide more permanent kind of shelter. That shift is super important in regards to providing food stability and food security to those communities. It helps, one, with data tracking, some different things. We're going to cover that later, but just kind of wanted to mention that before we dive into some of the other factors. This is a complex problem. And it's one of those things where we really want to encourage all of you that are volunteering with various organizations to kind of bring this aspect up to them. How can we partner and bring more resources to where we are serving, where we are doing? How can we go to more places to provide those resources and all that? For us at Martha's Kitchen, again, this looks really simple, like people reaching out saying, hey, we're going to start up a food delivery service. Hey, we need X amount of meals to serve to this community. We obviously talk with our head chef. We kind of plan that out, and then we execute as best we can. I'm assuming some of the organizations that maybe you guys represent are already doing some of this stuff, and that's great. And so hopefully this conversation can be just kind of further fuel to your fire as far as just kind of keeping that train going and keeping that momentum going into 2021. So on to the food side of things. Food security means having at all times both physical and economic access to sufficient food to meet dietary needs for a productive and healthy life. I think when you start really looking into the numbers of food, you'd be really surprised again at about how many families are starting to skip meals because of COVID. A lot of the people that we serve will come to us and say, hey, this is my only meal of the day. Hey, this is for my family. I usually will skip meals. I eat, one meal a day so that my kids can have, 3 meals a day. Again, we meet people from various walks of life, and COVID has really expanded on that significantly in the sense that we are seeing more kind of what's referred to as like working class people show up to get free food. And that's awesome. We want, again, whether you're, a teacher that just wants a break from cooking dinner for the night, come on by. We really want to provide food to everyone. That's kind of our goal here at Martha's Kitchen. What we are seeing with the pandemic is a rise of people who are not homeless, but have lost work, had hours taken away, forced into part-time. These individuals are now seeking ways to offset income loss. And unfortunately, that means that food is often reduced, and therefore now we have someone seeking food security. Well, we all hope that this is going to be over soon. We, as an organization, obviously have to prepare to kind of dig in for the long term. California. So right now, currently, numbers at least that I found, there are roughly about 14 million people in California that are technically food insecure or seeking food security. And that usually means that they're missing 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day. And again, that's the group that we really want to try to reach out to, right? I mean, again, we want to maximize our reach. We have a couple partner organizations that also do food, and we try to really make sure that we're not, essentially duplicating efforts, right? That we're kind of spreading food out as much as we possibly can. And then again, that food rescue piece really comes into play in the sense that when a farm, local farm calls us and says, hey, we have 900 pounds of leeks left over. Can you guys take those? We're always like, yep, let's do it. And basically what we do is we box those up and then we distribute them to partners, like I said, in 9 counties. And so I think the more organizations that, again, we can really kind of keep that momentum going, keep that food rescue going, and really stretch those resources, it's going to be pivotal to bringing food security to those communities in 2021. There are obviously a ton of issues surrounding food insecurity in general. Like I said, income loss, poverty. There's sometimes a stigma, and we've seen this at Martha's Kitchen, that people feel like, oh, well, I can't go there for food. And that's one of the things we're working really hard to break down, kind of is that barrier of like, no, listen, anybody can come get food. And I think most organizations operate in that same way. And I think that the more people that know that they can have access to those resources, the better. That's where we're going to tie the kind of social media service project in at the end of this too. And again, I'm hopeful most of you have some social media to one degree or another, but it actually plays a super pivotal, significant role in helping get the word out about those services to people that need them, to people that possibly might need them in the future. And that's one of those things where we're going to kind of expand on that a little bit. And then I'm going to help you guys kind of hopefully get the word out in your communities and the areas that you serve. So sheltered and unsheltered, right? That is a huge issue in regards to, again, when we talk about the food security piece of things. Obviously, if anybody is in a shelter or temporary home or some sort of transitioning kind of home, they have access. They usually have people there in their organization that can coordinate different resources to them. We want to make sure that we try to, and that's part of the collaboration piece, right? Bring those resources to people so that the unsheltered people can have the same access that the sheltered people do to those resources until they're able to get into a temporary kind of housing situation. Again, I want to be upfront. I am not the foremost expert on a lot of this stuff. But again, trying to kind of raise awareness and help bring light to some of these issues so that we can collaborate together and hopefully, again, start to kind of see the downturn of homelessness, food insecurity, et cetera. Partnering with local farms. I would encourage any of you that obviously maybe work with or partner with any sort of food kind of service-based organizations to reach out to local farms. You would be surprised at sometimes when they're not able to sell certain products or certain vegetables or whatever it may be, that they would totally be willing to partner with you and get you those resources, right? And that's one of those things where it's just that little bit of extra effort on the organization's part to kind of reach out and make contact. And our executive director here at Martha's Kitchen does a phenomenal job of doing that. We partner with a lot of different farms, organizations, again, to really try to get them to understand that, hey, if you've got extra food, we'll take it. We know people that can use it. And so I would encourage all of you that are working with any sort of kind of food-based organization to start looking kind of outside the box at where some of those resources could come from so that you can continue doing the good work that you're doing by serving those meals. It takes us roughly about $2 to put together a meal. Again, this could range from anything from mac and cheese and broccoli and some bread to we served on Thanksgiving. We'll do turkey and mashed potatoes and again, good nutritious food, right? It's one thing if somebody's eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. It's another thing if they're able to get their carbs, their proteins, and their veggies. And so with that being said, again, COVID putting a hamper on kind of the in-service stuff, but again, there's disposable to-go boxes. There's all sorts of options out there that again, through the good work that you guys are doing as volunteers, as organizations, we can continue to try to rise and meet this need as it goes. Talked a lot about groceries already, but I do think that, again, sometimes there is a little bit of a barrier or a wall between organizations, companies, resources in regards to a to-go meal versus giving maybe a family some groceries where they can go home and they can make the food themselves. And so that's where on our end, and I know a lot of the organizations you probably partner with, you do both, right? You give, whether it's veggie to-go boxes or various types of dairy, meats, things. And that's where we're trying to meet the need wherever it is, and in the best way that we possibly can. And we anticipate that, again, in 2021, the need's just going to continue to climb in regards to food kind of insecurity. And so I'd encourage all of you that partner with food-based organizations to really start to kind of press back a little bit, right? Ask those big questions of, hey, how can we do more? Hey, I know a store down the street, they get rid of X amount of food a week. Let's see if we can pick up from them. Because again, all of that food that would otherwise go to a landfill, could go to other places, to people that really actually need that food. Solutions. So again, I by no means have the perfect answer for this, but again, my hope would be is that maybe this lights a little bit of a fire for somebody. And, again, you end up being the person that really kind of brings this thing home and helps kind of end not only homelessness, but also kind of be the reason that we're able to bring more food security to the areas that we serve. So it's a coordinated systems approach. Mentioned it kind of a little bit, kind of as we've gone through this presentation so far. Basically what it is that your organization, maybe you know of an organization already kind of doing this, reach out to them. Find out what services they offer, find out what services they don't have where they are, and then find the partners for them. Right? Sometimes, I know for myself, we'll have partners that come in and they recommend and say, hey, we'd love to partner with you guys. We do laundry services. Could we come to Martha's Kitchen once a week and provide these services? And it's like, heck yes, you can. That sounds awesome. And so I think what it does is it ends up building these little mini communities of resources that eventually through time, word gets out, and then people know that they can come there. They can get not just one need met, but 3 or 4 needs met. And so in a big picture scale, there are a lot of states where prior to COVID, we saw homelessness start to downturn, food insecurity kind of start to downturn a little bit. And it was because they were doing stuff like this. You had shelters, temporary housing, things like that, partnering with other organizations to provide these services to help people get back on their feet, right? And that's kind of the main goal, is we want to make sure that people get fed, they can get back on their feet, they can get a job if they lost their job, they can get the access to healthcare that they need. I mean, that's why we're all doing this, right? Is to kind of help people. That's really at its core what it is. And we all do that in various ways, but they're all super important and they're all key pieces to a puzzle that I think that is really unique and kind of really bonds us all in a very unique way as far as kind of having that heart of service and wanting to give back and partner. And so some of the areas kind of in this approach are, again, the planning piece. If I know that, hey, I have a temporary house and I've got 20 beds, I know that that means I need to take care of 20 people. I need to provide 3 meals a day. It provides some data that we're really lacking, I think, in some ways. And I'm not speaking for your organization, but just in the sense of kind of having a real true grasp on how exponentially big some of these issues are. And so I think by partnering together, by coming together, by sharing resources, by doing some of that, we can really start to make a dent in this. Healthcare, whether it's laundry services, showers, food, again, it is very tough sometimes as a nonprofit to provide all of those things. And that's where the coordinated systems approach really kind of starts to bring people together. And my hope would be is that for each of your organizations, maybe somebody's feeling really inspired by my talk today and it's like, hey, I'm going to lead the charge. I'm going to kind of get people fired up about this. I'm going to start gathering people together just to kind of, again, start putting those pieces to that puzzle and try to kind of bring a little bit more cohesiveness to the areas that they serve. How can you get involved? So obviously, I would assume most of you guys are already actively volunteering in some capacity and or working for nonprofits. That's awesome. One of the biggest things at Martha's Kitchen, at least, is we, due to COVID, we try to apply, by all the COVID regulations, health, safety, all of that stuff. A lot of what our volunteers do is they do a lot of the prep work, again, chopping vegetables, cleaning vegetables. And then what we do is we turn those into meals, as you can see in the picture. That's macaroni, like I mentioned, and carrots. But again, hot meals, right? That to somebody that otherwise wouldn't have access to that. And so, our hope and our goal is to always kind of rise to meet that need. And so I would encourage you guys that maybe if you're trying to find a new way to get involved, a new way to give back, start doing some research kind of in your community. And again, social media is a great way to kind of find those organizations that are doing different things, right? And I know this is supposed to be about food, and I'm really sorry that I'm kind of taking a more broad approach to it. But again, really to kind of make a dent, we're going to all have to kind of be in this together. And so I would encourage you to reach out to the organizations you already partner with. Again, raise those tough questions to the executive director or anybody you feel comfortable talking to of, hey, how can we kind of do more? What else can kind of we be doing? One of the ways that Martha's Kitchen and not a bragging moment, but this last Christmas, we actually hosted a toy drive for our community. Prior to that, we'd always do some sort of toy giveaway during our Christmas kind of dinner service. But this year we actually partnered with Toys for Tots and the Order of Malta, and we were able to give away 8,000 toys to our community. And so again, people look at us and they're like, you do food, why are you doing that? But again, to us, it's more about, hey, there's a need. People are having a tough time, money's tight. Hey, we have an organization that wants to, get us the toys. We've got an organization that wants to wrap them. Let's make that happen. And we did that in about 3 days time. We passed out about 8,000 toys, which is, again, pretty cool. Bragging moment. I'm sorry. But it's one of those things where that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about is what are extra little things that we can all do to kind of bring some joy to hope. And then again, bring that kind of security piece to our communities. So if you do want to partner with us at Martha's Kitchen, obviously you can visit our website. Please follow us on social media. Again, maybe you're in California, San Jose, of an organization that you think, hey, this would be a great fit. You guys could partner with them. Shoot us a message. I'm usually the one responding to those messages. So if you want to get upset with somebody for not responding, it would be me. But I'm usually pretty good about responding to everybody. And again, as we kind of dive into the service project here in a little bit, I just really want to say thank you. Because again, I know you guys could have probably chosen other sessions to attend. Maybe you did choose other sessions, or maybe they ran out of space and so you joined this one. But I just want to say thank you for your time. And again, I'm excited kind of to see where we get with the service project. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Ryan.
So if anyone has questions, you can drop those in the chat. Otherwise, if you feel like it's a little more complicated and you'd like to your hand, and then we can. So Ryan, we have a couple people asking, first of all, where you're located, and then what can you like list a lot of the services you provide?
Totally. So again, part of the problem with me trying to keep my history portion short, that's probably good. So we're actually located at 311 Willow Street in San Jose, California. We're open Monday through Friday. We